The White House admitting that the economic impact of this partial federal government shutdown, President Trump said he would be proud to own, is worse than initially expected. Charities across the country are now helping federal employees with groceries and food. Here in D.C. today, furloughed workers and contractors lined up for a free meal from humanitarian and chef Jose Andres, as the Department of Agriculture revealed it may not have funding for food stamps if the shutdown continues past February. The Trump administration, meanwhile, in an attempt to blunt the impact of this all on the public, is starting to call employees back into work without pay, making it impossible for workers who have taken up second jobs to pay the bills. Again, this is economic pain inflicted on American citizens by the American government. As CNN's Tom Foreman reports, as bad as things look now, they're about to get a whole lot worse.
The money is missing for training some firefighters, for upgrades to hurricane prediction models, for inspecting all foods,
government shutdown's got to go,
and for hundreds of thousands of federal workers such as Lynn Stratton in Utah, who sees an economic cliff coming.
I have enough for one more mortgage payment, and I got to go to CarMax tomorrow and sell my car.
She's not alone. Analysts say the slow economic erosion of the shutdown could collapse into a fast-moving landslide of problems if the D.C. stalemate continues.
We need border security. We have to have it.
At national parks, winter preparations for the busy summer season are on hold. No thinning of brush to prevent catastrophic wildfires. No stopping of damage by tourists still using the land.
This will have a ripple effect through operations for at least a year and beyond.
Think those security lines look bad at airports now? Fears are mounting that many more essential federal workers could soon start seeking other employment, especially since a Federal Reserve survey found in 2017, 40% of American adults did not have enough to cover even a $400 emergency.
We have creditors, we have medical bills, we have mortgages, we have rent, we have things that we need to take care of.
Plenty of services have already been entirely or partially shut down. Investigations of fatal transportation accidents, road and bridge projects, mass transit maintenance, pollution inspections, agriculture reports, and the whole Smithsonian, including the National Zoo's Panda Cam.
Paying for daycare and all those things. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Expected to run out of money soon. Federal court offices, rent assistance for thousands of low-income families, food assistance for 7 million low-income pregnant women, new mothers, and young children. And while the food stamps program is okay now, next month it may not be. So much seems on the brink of rampant collapse, and it's such a distraction for the workers still on the job. The head of the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association sent a letter to the President and Congress, too, saying, "I implore you to find a solution before an unnecessary tragedy occurs." This is not fear-mongering or anything like that. Economic analysts say the point is this will not continue to be a slow burn. Many federal agencies are patching things together with whatever funds they can find, so are contractors who rely on government business. But as they run out of options, the impact will increase rapidly, producing far-reaching effects which may be very hard and very expensive to reverse. Jake.
All right, Tom Foreman, thank you so much. The latest workers forced to work without pay, 46,000 IRS workers. This move means Americans will get their tax returns on time, but it does seem with the Trump administration calling back, and this, all of a sudden people are now essential employees, and they're no longer furloughed, not working without pay. Now they're working without pay. It does seem like they are trying to, play with the categorization so as the likes of us, people who are not furloughed or not federal employees, are not hurt by this.
Well, I think that can only go for so long. Even just going through the airport, you see the impacts of this. There are TSA workers, even if they're present, and I'm not saying all of them, but even if they're present, they're not completely active. Right. You can see despondence on their faces. Like, this is a very, very tough shutdown, especially, again, we're 26 days in for those who are not doing the math. I think the other part of this is people are not calculating how this has disastrous impacts on the economy overall. When you consider the number of people who are contractors for the federal government, there's well over 10,000 companies, and that's going to be costing the economy overall more than $200 million a week.
And they're not going to get back
they don't get back pay. Even with this bill that was signed, it's for federal workers, not for federal contractors.
And this, I wonder if at one point, the president, let's just put it as charitably as possible, it doesn't have the largest compassion gene inside him. Mm-hmm. But when the economy, when the economic numbers start to really show slowing down, if not worse, will then he be prompted to?
I think the possibility of economic consequences are the most likely to be a pressure point on him of anything. But that being said, when it comes to something like tariffs, he's been advised that this could go badly for the economy as well, and he digs his heels in. The bottom line is that federal workers out of work or furloughed for Donald Trump is not a political pressure point. Just pure politics, it is not a pressure point for him. It is a pressure point for Democrats. So that is why I have thought that unless he just up and caves tomorrow because he decides to, because sometimes he does weird stuff like that, that they would likely have to give some physical part of border security in a package. But, and I see you shaking your head with good reason, the left has said, we gave you the House and this is your first fight with him. You can't cave. Then we're at an impasse.
How disturbing is it? Because I know what Mary Catherine is saying about the president is true, but how disturbing? I mean, I want the American people to wrap their minds around this, that the only pressure point for him is what impacts him directly. But he doesn't care about people not being able to feed themselves and their children. He doesn't care that 70% of this economy is a consumer-based economy. So, you know, he has never suffered materially a day in his life. He is a selfish man.
I think it's easy for a lot of conservatives to say, well, this is a partial government shutdown. This doesn't affect the entire government. This is just a percentage. But if this is your paycheck, this is 100% a big problem. So it really didn't hit home with a lot of constituents and reaching out to members of the House and Senate and their leaders until Friday, when they first got that goose egg on their paycheck and they said, this is real. This is a real problem. So now they're speaking out, which I think goes a long way to why we're now seeing progress. We had the problem solvers come today, and they say they have made progress. They're getting together and having some consensus. There's going to have to be some horse trading. I believe DACA has to be part of the deal. But what they are having conversations on and has moved progress on is there's a bipartisan effort. Let's open up this government, and then we'll worry about securing the border.
But the White House won't do that because they think the only leverage they have is the government shutdown. Take a look at Washington Post reporter Bob Costa tweeted, couple senior Republican lawmakers tell me the only way this breaks open is if TSA employees stay home and Americans get furious about their flights. That's the only out, they say, and they're close to the White House. And then you also heard in the piece by Tom Foreman, there is this fear maybe it's going to take a tragedy. I mean, you have law enforcement agencies not working at full capacity, et cetera. And hopefully that won't be it. Obviously, none of us want that to happen, but will it take something like that?
And I think that's exactly the point, bringing this full circle back to the State of the Union address, too. That is a time where all the Supreme Court justices, everyone in the executive branch except for one, all of the members of Congress, you have those number of people present and with the significance of their roles in one building. That is scary. And it is a severe threat given the circumstances right now and that government agencies aren't operating at their full capacity.